Ravi Patel stood before the Galactic Academy's admissions portal, his heart pounding beneath the sleek environmental suit required for non-standardized atmospheric species. The crystalline spires of the Academy stretched impossibly high into the violet sky of Centauri Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 suns in dazzling patterns. He adjusted the small containment unit strapped to his back for the 100th time, making sure the temperature controls were still functioning perfectly. "Everything okay in there, Raja?" he whispered, tapping gently on the unit's biosensor display. A series of happy readings pulsed back at him, making him smile. The tiny containment unit housed his beloved companion, a creature that had caused no small amount of debate during his application process to the Academy. The admissions officer, a towering Andromean with iridescent scales, gestured with one of their 4 arms. "Student Patel, please proceed to decontamination chamber 3 for standard processing." Ravi took a deep breath and stepped forward. This was the moment of truth. He'd been completely honest in his application about Raja, but there was a difference between reading about something in a file and seeing it in person. As he entered the chamber, a soft blue light began scanning his body and equipment. "Scanning complete," announced the AI system. 1 human juvenile, 1 Class B environmental suit, and 1 anomalous biosignature detected. "Please explain the additional life form." "That's Raja," Ravi said, trying to keep his voice steady. "She's documented in my application under the Companion Species Clause, Section 7, Paragraph 13. There was a pause as the AI processed this information. "Accessing records. Confirmed. Though I must note this is the first time we've had a human student request accommodation for this particular species. Are you certain about this arrangement?" "Yes," Ravi said firmly. "Raja's been with me since I was 12. She's perfectly safe and well-trained." Another pause. "Very well. Please proceed to Orientation Hall Delta. Your assigned cultural liaison will meet you there. And Student Patel, do try to avoid any sudden revelations about your companion during peak academic hours." Ravi nodded, though he couldn't help wondering how long he could really keep Raja's nature under wraps. The Academy's halls were filled with beings from across the galaxy, each more bizarre than the last. Surely his pet wouldn't cause that much of a stir. The Orientation Hall was a vast chamber with a holographic ceiling displaying a real-time map of local space. Various species clustered in groups, their universal translators creating a strange harmony of different languages being converted simultaneously. Ravi's cultural liaison turned out to be a proximan named Zixtai, whose bioluminescent patches pulsed with welcome patterns. "Greetings, Student Patel. I've been briefed about your unique situation." Zixtai's translator rendered their clicks and whistles into smooth standard English. "I must admit, I'm quite curious about your companion. In my research on Earth species, I've never encountered anything quite like." A small chime from the containment unit interrupted them. "Raja's feeding time. Would you like to meet her?" Ravi asked, already reaching for the unit's release mechanism. "She's very friendly." Zixtai's bioluminescence flickered with what might have been nervousness. "Perhaps we should wait until we're in a more private." But Ravi had already activated the release sequence. The containment unit's top split open with a soft hiss, and Raja emerged, stretching her long, sleek body in the artificial light. Several nearby students turned to look, and then the screaming began. Raja, Ravi's beloved 6-foot-long monitor lizard, flicked her tongue curiously at the chaos erupting around them. She turned her intelligent eyes toward her human companion as if to ask, "What's all the fuss about?" Zixtai had backed against a wall, their bioluminescent patches strobing in distress. "Student Patel," they managed to squeak out, "when your application mentioned a domesticated reptilian companion, we assumed you meant something smaller." Raja chose that moment to yawn, displaying impressive rows of teeth. 3 different species promptly fainted, and somewhere in the distance, security alarms began to wail. "Oh dear," Ravi muttered, watching as his monitor lizard calmly settled around his shoulders like a scaly scarf. Perhaps I should have mentioned she likes to cuddle. Cultural shockwaves. The Academy's emergency response protocols had never accounted for a human student bringing a monitor lizard to class. Dean Vox Thirl's crystalline form shimmered with stress patterns as they reviewed the incident report, all 6 of their sensory clusters focused on Ravi. Let me understand this correctly, the Dean's translator rendered their harmonic vibrations. You brought a predatory reptile, capable of consuming beings smaller than itself, to our educational institution. Raja's not predatory. Well, technically yes, but she's domesticated, Ravi explained, while Raja dozed contentedly in her temporary containment field. She only eats specially prepared food, and she's incredibly gentle. Did you know monitor lizards are as intelligent as dogs? She can even recognize different people and responds to commands. The Dean's crystalline structure briefly clouded with confusion. Ah yes, the dogs. Another example of humanity's peculiar habit of forming emotional bonds with predator species. Student Patel, are you aware that 17 different species in this academy have evolved specifically to avoid creatures with Raja's characteristics? Before Ravi could respond, Professor New Yorklith burst into the office, their tentacles writhing with excitement. Dean, you won't believe what I've discovered about human-reptile bonding patterns. The psychological implications are fascinating. The xenopsychology professor had been the only faculty member who hadn't run away when Raja made her appearance. Instead, they'd started taking furious notes. The human juvenile has managed to establish a symbiotic relationship with a species that historically preyed upon their ancestors, New Yorklith continued. It's unprecedented. We must document this for the Galactic Journal of Xenobehavioral Studies. Professor, the Dean vibrated warningly, this is a disciplinary hearing, not a research opportunity. But think of the implications. If humans can form emotional bonds with their former predators, perhaps there's hope for the Rigelian Serpentoid peace talks. Raja chose that moment to shift in her containment field, causing several security drones to power up their shields. The lizard merely flicked her tongue out, tasting the air with casual interest. See how calm she is? Ravi pointed out hopefully. She's actually helping reduce my stress levels. On Earth, many people keep companion animals for emotional support. Emotional support. The Dean's translation came through garbled, their crystalline form vibrating with confusion. You deliberately maintain proximity to a predator, for emotional comfort. Fascinating. Professor New Yorklith's tentacles curled with academic excitement. Humans use controlled exposure to predator species as a form of psychological therapy. Dean, we can't possibly expel this student. This could revolutionize our understanding of human psychology. The Dean's surface rippled with resignation. Perhaps, we could establish some guidelines. Strict containment protocols during class hours, mandatory warning signs. And perhaps, Professor New Yorklith added enthusiastically, a few supervised interaction sessions for my xenopsychology students. Purely for academic purposes, of course. Ravi brightened. Raja would love that. She's great with new people. I could even show everyone how she plays with her enrichment toys. The security drones whirred anxiously at the word plays. Very well, the Dean conceded, their crystal structure settling into a more organized pattern. But one incident, one single complaint about your companion attempting to consume a fellow student. Raja would never. Ravi protested. Though, maybe we should wait a while before I mention her swimming abilities. Or show anyone her feeding videos. The Dean's translator crackled with static. Feeding videos? Oh yes. Professor New Yorklith's tentacles waved excitedly. I've been studying Earth's YouTube archives. The feeding behaviors of monitor lizards are quite spectacular. Would you like to see? The Dean's form briefly went completely transparent, their species equivalent of a stress-induced faint. Meanwhile, Raja yawned contentedly in her containment field, completely unaware of the academic revolution she had just sparked. The first paper about human-reptile bonding patterns would be published in the Galactic Journal 3 weeks later, causing a minor sensation in xenopsychology circles and prompting a flood of research requests that would keep Professor New Yorklith busy for years. And somewhere in the Academy's vast database, a new protocol was added, Guidelines for the Integration of Earth's Unusual Companion Species, subsection L for lizards. Warning. Contains content that may be distressing to species with ancestral serpentiform trauma. Diplomatic incidents. News of Raja's presence spread through the Academy's subspace communications network faster than a quantum particle. Within days, the Galactic Educational Council had convened an emergency session to discuss the Earth reptile situation. The Proximan delegation demands immediate action, announced Council Member Kfor, their holographic form flickering with agitation. 3 of their students have entered voluntary hibernation rather than share a cafeteria with what they term the Scaled One. Ravi sat outside the council chamber, watching the proceedings through a transparent wall while Raja dozed in her containment unit. Professor New Yorklith stood beside him, their tentacles moving in patterns that indicated intense scientific interest. Remarkable, the professor murmured, recording the council's reactions. The mere concept of voluntary human-reptile companionship has triggered a mass xenocultural anxiety response. Inside the chamber, Ambassador Lin of Earth's diplomatic corps was attempting damage control. Monitor lizards have been domesticated companions on Earth for generations. Raja has passed all safety protocols and behavioral assessments. It sheds its skin, shrieked the Andromedian representative. Voluntarily. How can any civilized being trust a creature that periodically discards its own exterior? Actually, Ravi whispered to Professor New Yorklith, Raja's about due for a shed. The colors are always most vibrant right after. Perhaps we should keep that information classified for now, the professor advised hastily, noting how several council members' biosignatures were already showing stress patterns. The debate might have continued indefinitely if not for an unexpected intervention. Junior Delegate ZZZ Kate of the Betelgeuse hive mind, who had been quietly observing until now, suddenly activated their communication crystal. We have reviewed Earth's historical records, their multi-toned voice resonated through the chamber. Humans have demonstrated a unique ability to form symbiotic bonds with species that once threatened their survival. This adaptation has consistently led to technological and social advancements. The chamber fell silent. The Betelgeuse hive mind was renowned for their logical analysis of evolutionary patterns. Furthermore, ZZZ Kate continued, our preliminary studies suggest that human-reptile bonding may offer insights into cross-species communication that could benefit the entire galactic community. The delegate makes an interesting point, Ambassador Lin seized the opportunity. Consider the diplomatic implications. If humans can bridge the gap between mammals and reptiles, perhaps we can offer unique perspectives on other interspecies challenges. Professor New Yorklith's tentacles curled with excitement. Yes. My research already suggests that studying human-reptile bonds could revolutionize our approach to species integration. The council chamber erupted in overlapping discussions. Meanwhile, Raja chose this perfectly dramatic moment to press her snout against her containment field, tongue flicking curiously at the assembled diplomats. Several council members flinched, but Junior Delegate ZZZ Kate moved closer, their crystalline sensors analyzing the lizard's behavior. Fascinating, they broadcasted. The creature displays clear signs of intelligence and social awareness. Perhaps a controlled study. Now you're talking. Ravi brightened. Raja loves learning new things. She's already mastered several enrichment puzzles, and she can even. Student Patel, Ambassador Lin interjected quickly, perhaps we should discuss Raja's achievements in smaller groups. The council eventually reached a compromise, Raja could stay, but with certain conditions. The Academy would establish reptile-free zones for species with severe herpetological anxiety, and Ravi would need to provide advance notice before bringing Raja to any public areas. But the most surprising development came from the Betelgeuse hive mind. They requested permission to include Raja in their ongoing study of cross-species communication patterns, suggesting that understanding how humans and reptiles formed emotional bonds might help bridge other interspecific gaps. As Ravi and Raja left the council chamber, Professor New York Litha's translator picked up an interesting exchange between two council members. If humans can befriend their ancestral predators, one whispered, perhaps there's hope for the Rigelian Serpentoid peace talks after all. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, the other responded. Though, did you notice how content the creature looked and its human scratched under its chin? Understanding differences. The xenobiology lab hummed with activity as students from 17 different species gathered for Professor New York Litha's groundbreaking seminar, Understanding Human-Reptile Bonding Patterns. Raja lay contentedly on her heated platform, while scanning devices monitored her brain activity. Observe, Professor New York Litha gestured with their tentacles, how the reptile's neural patterns synchronize with student Patel's emotional state. This suggests a level of empathetic connection previously thought impossible between warm and cold-blooded species. Junior Delegate ZZZK Test research team hovered nearby, their crystalline sensors recording every interaction. The Betelgeuse hive mind's interest had unexpectedly transformed Raja into the Academy's most studied resident. The implications are revolutionary, ZZZK broadcasted. If a solitary predator species can develop emotional intelligence through human interaction, perhaps other seemingly incompatible species. They were interrupted by a commotion at the lab entrance. A group of Proximan students, led by a nervous-looking Zixtai, cautiously entered the room. We wish to observe the Earth-reptile interaction protocols, Zixtai announced, their bioluminescent patches flickering with anxiety. For scientific purposes only, of course. Ravi smiled encouragingly. Would you like to meet Raja properly? She's extra calm after her morning basking session. The Proximans huddled together, their species' ancestral fear of reptiloids warring with scientific curiosity. Finally, Zixtai stepped forward. The hive mind's data suggests minimal risk, they clicked nervously. And Professor New York Litha's research indicates potential benefits for interspecies understanding. Raja lifted her head slightly, tongue flicking out to taste the newcomer's pheromones. Several Proximans flinched, but Zixtai held their ground. See? She's just saying hello, Ravi explained. That's how monitor lizards gather information about their environment. They can actually taste particles in the air. Fascinating, Zixtai's translator rendered their clicks with growing confidence. Our species uses bioluminescent patterns for similar environmental analysis. As if in response, Raja's scales caught the light, displaying iridescent patterns that captivated the Proximan students. Their own bioluminescence shifted to match the lizard's colors, creating an impromptu light show. Extraordinary. Professor New York Litha's tentacles writhed with academic excitement. We're witnessing spontaneous cross-species communication protocols. The Betelgeuse research team vibrated with interest as their sensors recorded the unexpected interaction. Even the most skeptical council members would have trouble dismissing this evidence of interspecies harmony. By the end of the session, Zixtai had progressed from nervous observation to carefully offering Raja approved treats under Ravi's supervision. The other Proximan students documented everything, their fear gradually transforming into scientific interest. Perhaps, Zixtai suggested as they left the lab, we could schedule regular observation sessions. Purely for research purposes, of course. Professor New York Litha's tentacles curled with satisfaction. It seems your companion is becoming quite the diplomat, Student Patel. Ravi watched as Raja settled back into her basking spot, completely unaware of her role in advancing galactic interspecies relations. The monitor lizard's peaceful presence had somehow accomplished what years of formal diplomatic negotiations couldn't, bringing together species that would normally never interact. She just needs a chance to show everyone who she really is, Ravi said, gently stroking Raja's scales. Sometimes the scariest things become the most fascinating once you understand them. A new perspective. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Academy buzzed with anticipation as beings from across the galaxy gathered for the first Interspecies Understanding Symposium. At the center of attention was a display showing real-time neural synchronization patterns between different species, with Raja and Ravi's data featured prominently. The evidence is undeniable, Professor New York Lith addressed the assembled crowd, their tentacles gesturing at the holographic displays. What began as a simple case of an unusual Earth pet has evolved into a breakthrough in cross-species empathy research. The audience included not just Academy staff and students, but also representatives from the Rigelian Serpentoid Peace Delegation, who watched with particular interest as Raja demonstrated her puzzle-solving abilities. The monitor lizard methodically worked through a series of challenges, showing problem-solving skills that rivaled many sentient species. Notice, Junior Delegate ZZZ Kate broadcasted, how the reptile adapts its behavior based on social cues from different species. This suggests a far more sophisticated form of intelligence than previously attributed to non-sentient companions. In the front row, Zixtai's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with pride. They had become Raja's unofficial research assistant, documenting how their own species' fear responses diminished through repeated positive interactions with the lizard. When student Patel first arrived, Dean Vox Thirl addressed the assembly, their crystalline form gleaming with academic pride. We thought we faced a diplomatic crisis. Instead, we discovered a unique opportunity to challenge our preconceptions about interspecies relationships. The symposium's highlight came when Raja, comfortable among the diverse crowd, demonstrated her social bonds by calmly accepting treats from representatives of species that would normally trigger her predatory instincts. The Proximans, once terrified, now competed to capture the best holographic recordings of these interactions. It's not just about pets, Ravi explained to an eager group of xenobiology students. It's about looking past our evolutionary programming to see the potential for connection. Raja taught us that fear often comes from misunderstanding. As if to emphasize his point, Raja gently rested her head on a nearby Andromedian's lap, causing delighted gasps from the audience. The Andromedian, rather than recoiling, cautiously patted her scales. The Academy is proud to announce, the Dean continued, the establishment of the Center for Human-Animal Bond Studies, dedicated to understanding how humanity's unique relationship with Earth's creatures might help us bridge other galactic divides. Professor New York Litha's latest research paper, Predator-Prey Bond Evolution, Lessons from Earth's Monitor Lizards, had already become the most cited publication in the history of xenopsychology. The Betelgeuse hive mind had incorporated the findings into their diplomatic protocols, revolutionizing their approach to species integration. As the symposium concluded, Ravi found himself surrounded by students eager to learn more about Earth's other companion animals. Well, he began carefully, has anyone heard about something called a tarantula? The dean's translator crackled with static. Perhaps we should save that discussion for next semester's symposium. Raja, basking in the attention and warmth of multiple species' body heat, flicked her tongue contentedly. She had no way of knowing that her presence had sparked a revolution in galactic social dynamics, or that future xenobiologists would study this moment as the beginning of a new era in interspecies relations. In the end, it turned out that sometimes the most powerful diplomatic tool wasn't a treaty or a peace conference, but a simple Earth boy and his monitor lizard, showing the galaxy that understanding could bridge even the widest evolutionary gaps.